Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Brett's Brain. Today, we're going to talk about how to communicate with your investors prior to raising a round of capital, while you're raising a round of capital, and after you're done raising your round of capital. Hey, I'm Brett Brohl, former entrepreneur, current venture capitalist. Thanks so much for checking out this channel. If you like the content, make sure you share, subscribe, like, do all those things, and ask us questions. Our goal is to help entrepreneurs succeed. So if you have any questions for us that you want us to cover in future videos, let us know. Put it in the comments. Ask us questions. We're always answering them. All right, on to the main content. Communication and communicating with your investors and how to use it as a tool to increase your chance at success as an entrepreneur. Now, there's a lot of different opportunities that you have in different types of stakeholders here. So I'm going to talk about two key investor segments. First is investors that have already invested in your company. The second is potential investors that you want to keep warm or that you think might one day invest in your company. There's also different stages of your company. So as I mentioned in the opening, you have the what do you do and how often do you communicate before your fundraising? Then when you go into a fundraising cycle, how does that change? And finally, once you've closed that round, what should you be doing and how should you be communicating to your investors on an ongoing basis? So let's start with that first bucket. How should you be communicating with your investors? Well, it's really important. I firmly believe that if you're a pre-Series A company, you need to be communicating with your investors at minimum on a monthly basis. Now, you don't need to write a Bible. You don't need to write, the next set of encyclopedias on a monthly basis, but you do need to be sending out an update with 5 key things on it. First is, believe it or not, you always want to make sure you give a quick reminder of like, hey, this is what we're doing. This is who we are. Second is, give us a couple highs. Third, what are some lows? What are some bad things that happened in your company? Fourth, how are your KPIs performing? So those key metrics that we've talked about in other videos, like make sure you tell us, like this is how our KPIs performed this month relative to how we performed the prior months. Use graphs. Graphs are awesome. Don't just say this month we did $10,000 in revenue. That doesn't help me because I don't remember how much you did last month. Don't make me go look it up. Make it super easy. And fifth, really important, is asks for help. How can your existing investor base help you over the next month, over the next quarter? Be very specific in those asks. Don't just say, hey, we need introductions to potential customers. Like that's not going to get anything for you. Hey, we need introductions to potential investors. Not going to get anything for you. Be really specific in who you're looking for an introduction to, and you'll actually be surprised at how frequently an investor might be able to make that connection. All right, so that's what you're sending out to all of your existing investors prior to a round starting. Should you be doing the same thing for potential investors? When I was running my last company and we were sending out monthly investor updates, I actually sent the exact same carbon copy to investors that I had had meetings with but had not yet invested. Really important that investors that I had met with. Now, I wasn't sending out that update to cold investors that had no idea who I was or I had never met them or I never got a feeling for them. But if I had met with an investor and I thought that they might be a candidate for our next round, I thought it'd be super valuable to be completely transparent with them about how our business was performing over time. My thought was that it would really build credibility with that group of investors, and they knew I'd be telling them both the good, the bad, and the ugly. And honestly, once I pitched them, they're going to find that stuff out anyways because they're going to do their diligence and I'm not going to hide it. So I might as well tell it to them up front. And they're going to believe when I do meet with them, they're going to believe what I say. They're going to believe me when I tell them, hey, we're rocking and rolling right now because they're going to have tracked me over time. It's a really efficient way to keep investors that you want to potentially invest in you in the future in the loop without having to spend a ton of time with them. It's a great way to save time with your existing investors. A lot of entrepreneurs forget to send out this update or don't want to send out this update because they're afraid of how much time it's actually going to take them to write it. In reality, this investor update is a time savings device. It's not something that takes you more time. In the long run, it actually saves you time because you don't have to do as many investor calls. You might get intros that you wanted anyways and move the business forward faster. It's the most valuable use of an hour a month that I had when I was an entrepreneur was putting this quick, short, small investor update together. So I'd highly recommend that you do that. Now, we're moving into the fundraising mode. So when we're fundraising, how does this change? Changes a couple ways. With your existing investors, I think you should be meeting with them or at least updating them on a weekly basis. So it moves from monthly to weekly. Because the fundraising cycle is really fast. You're having a lot of meetings, things are changing frequently. With some of our portfolio companies, I'm talking to the founders while they're raising daily about what meetings they had, what strategy we should be using moving forward, how we should be communicating, what new introductions, et cetera, all that stuff. I'm communicating with those founders on a daily basis, sometimes multiple times a day with some founders. And it's great. We can help them with that fundraise strategy. So with existing investors, you should be updating them at least weekly. Now, it's a little bit of a different update. You're still going to send that core monthly update to your existing investors, but then you're also going to be doing a weekly fundraise update to your investors. Really important to do. This is who we're meeting with, because you never know who in your existing investor network might know another investor at a fund. If you have a meeting with them coming up, they could put a good word in for you. Keep people in the loop in your progress. It's really important. Now, with investors that you've met, that you're pitching during your fundraise process, if you haven't talked to them or heard from them in 7 days, it's your job to follow up. That's my rule of thumb, 7 days. So if you pitch an investor on a Tuesday and they tell you, hey, we'll get back to you with a few questions, and you haven't heard from them in 7 days, you got to hit them. You got to ping them. And what I recommend that you do is you actually, every week, you kind of write a stock update, right? So you write this update that has, here's something that went really well this week, here's some progress we made, here's something that we're struggling with or a challenge that we're facing with them in the business. And then you have that as a stock couple sentences, and then you customize it for the investor that you're going to send it to. So you're not sending a mass email out to all of the investors you've pitched weekly. You're actually going to do a bit more work and customize it. You have a couple of key bullets that are stock, but then you add in the customization of, hey, Bread and Butter Ventures might care about this, Matchstick Ventures might care about this, and you customize it to them and really make it personal. That's the kind of stuff that's going to get investors over the edge. So it's worth taking the time. Make sure that you are following up consistently, because if you don't follow up, you're going to get lost in the shuffle. Now, let's hope and think that we've closed this round because you've been a great communicator throughout the entire process. Post-investment, you're going to get back on that monthly cadence. All of your new investors are going to be on that monthly cadence. And I would communicate with everybody, hey, y'all, we finished raising this round of capital. We're going to move back to our monthly cadence, and we're going to be sending out an update monthly. If anybody wants to communicate or talk in between, please let me know. I'm happy to, and I'm going to reach out to you when I need some help. So after you raise, you move back to that monthly cadence that we talked about at the beginning of the session, and you're going to get all your new investors and the old original investors on the same email, that same chain. So that's a great communication strategy, pre-raise, during your raise, and post-raise. Communication is one of the things that we look for in entrepreneurs when we're thinking about investing. And so make sure that you stand out from the pack with your ability to communicate to investors, both the good, the bad, and where you're going. And that will put you apart and set you aside from all the other entrepreneurs out there. If you like this content, make sure you share, like, subscribe, and ask us questions. We're here to help.